In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Good day, everyone. I'm Nestor Licanto. Welcome to another edition of In Full Zoom. And this week, we're going to talk about the Pacific War Museum. And joining us this week is Mel Gerber, who is the president of the Pacific War Museum Foundation and the widow of the late founder of the Pacific War Museum, John Gerber, and John's sister and a director of the War Museum, Janet Calvo. Thanks for joining us, ladies.
Morning. Thank you, Lester.
Let me just start for those who may not have known John, and I go back to the 80s with John when KUAM was still in Orda. Yes, KUAM was actually first started in Orda, was from the 50s through the 80s, almost to the 90s, I think. KUAM was in Orda, and that's how far back I met John. Where I first met John. But Mel, tell us first of all about your late husband as a man and as a Marine.
Well, John was very patriotic. He loved his Marines. I always teased him that they were like a cult, band of brothers. So, he just brushed it off. But John wore many hats. He wore many hats. He was a father. He was a husband. He was into surplus. He was, a brother, uncle, friend. John had a lot of things going on, and there was just not enough hours in the day for him to finish. He was just always so busy. And he loved the people of Guam,
Yeah.
He did. Yeah.
And Janet, tell us about your brother.
Okay, so his earlier history, when he was DJing over at KUAM in Ordot, I was just a little girl. But my brother was, to me, famous. He was John Gerber of the Wireless Rock Show. He had already, I think he hung around the KUAM quite a bit, and then he had left when he joined the Marines. When he came back, that's when I think Wireless Rock was more popular. He had phases in his life, and DJing was one of them, as you well know. And then when he got into, he was always passionate about his Marines, and he started hosting in Ordot at his home, these barbecues. Whenever there were Marines that came to Guam, he would host a barbecue for them. And this was just purely volunteers out of his own pocket. I know I had to make red rice for him a few times. So he started small. And then he started his little collection down there and moved down to Adelup. Correct, Mel? Moved down to Adelup maybe in 2008. Is that when? 2008. He opened his museum down at Adelup. And that was a big hit with visitors, not just the military, but Japanese, Korean visitors. We also have schools that come down there regularly to learn about the history of Guam, because the war was a big part of it. And so we closed the doors of the museum in September due to the pandemic. And Mel and I have been working nonstop since then to move the museum to a more stormworthy structure in Tamuning at what is now called Freedom Park, the former Guam Greyhound. And I know I kind of just gave you a quick synopsis of John's timelines, but that's where we have been and where we are today. Mel has been fantastic in keeping the museum going. I just, as of late, started really paying attention. So she can give you all the background for, what the museum has gone through. And moving forward, I can talk to you about where we want to be and how we want to, I think our mission statement really speaks volumes about John's life. So Mel?
Yeah, Mel, tell us a little bit about how did first of all, what did it mean to John, and how did he go about accumulating all the stuff that is part of the museum?
Well, John was always, and he was passionate about being in the Marines, and he was into the surplus business. So he'd he collect slowly. And then over the years, his collection just grew. I'd say one year, John was watching the Liberation Parade on TV. And you know how the news would go around and ask them what liberation meant to the people. And a lot of their answers came back, it was a day off. We get to barbecue, see the parade, and just enjoy the day. And he thought to himself, they're losing sight of what Liberation Day really means. So, decided he wanted to put the museum together as an educational tool, and also for our visiting tourists to come in and, understand our history, part of it. This is part of our history. So he put up, the museum together with a lot of hard work, a lot of community support, volunteers. But for the majority of the building of the museum, he put a lot of sweat and manpower into that.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Yeah.
Just one example that I remember about how much the Marines meant to John was when he pulled that bulk cart all the way from one end of the island to the other. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, from Anderson. Well, they wanted to rename Marine Corps to Marine Corps Drive in honor of the Marines that helped liberate the island. And they were just throwing around a bunch of, a whole bunch of names. And John said, no, it's Marine Corps Drive. So he pulled that cart from Anderson all the way down to Navy. But midway, the governor then, Felix Camacho, signed into, an executive order renaming Marine Drive to Marine Corps Drive. And when that happened, he continued his walk all the way down to Navy. And for the next 2 days, he was sore. He could barely walk.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that because that's pretty much the length of a marathon, just about 26 miles from Anderson down to Big Navy. Now, I was not here the day he did that. In fact, I arrived the day after. And of course, there's big news in the paper. Everyone was talking about it. A lot of mixed feelings, but everyone called it Marine Drive at the time. And I myself thought it was Marine Drive because of its proximity to the ocean. But, people, they can still call it Marine Drive if that was so important to them. But the ironic thing is everyone calls it Marine Corps Drive now. It is a known road on the island. And when I meet people who are new to Guam and I tell them that little snippet of how that road was renamed, they're so amazed by it. And John asked me when I saw him the next day when I came in, he goes, are you embarrassed of me? I got out there and I said, embarrassed? Never. It was the proudest moment. He believed in something and he went and did something about it. That's something for all of us to take note of. That, there were people who wanted Chelan E Marines and names like that. And he just put his foot down and said, no, that's not what this is all about. So that was a big step for him. And
if there was any confusion about what Marine Drive meant, there is none anymore. We definitely know it is Marine Corps Drive now as a result of what John did accomplish. You mentioned you guys had a mission statement for the museum. Tell us a little bit more about that.
We do. I'm trying to see if I have the statement here. I don't have it in front of me. Mel, do you have that in front of you?
To inspire people, young and old, to embrace the lessons from the battles that took place on the Pacific Theater and Guam, stories of the 1,548 Marines, the countless Chamorros, the men and women of the military who sacrificed the ultimate price for the freedoms we enjoy today. To create and maintain a museum of the Pacific artifacts and exhibitions, to preserve the culture of the island through these memories or these reminders of the war fought heroically, and expand our understanding of the history and meaning of Guam's role in the Pacific and its relevance today and for the future. To provide a place for our children to develop, learn, and understand American strengths and values, to serve as a catalyst for tourism and fortify the economic and community growth of the U.S. territory of Guam.
Great mission statement. Janet, you mentioned that you're in the process now of moving into what was the old Guam Greyhound Park. So what are some of the new features that you guys would like to start up at the new location once it's finally open?
Well, the main focus are the artifacts that John collected over the years. So we will have, the facility will be an updated concrete buildings that locals and tourists alike can enjoy. We're going to take it to the next level because not just the artifacts, but we are going to offer interactive activities for children and adults alike. We also want to give some focus to the veterans here on Guam because John was big on remembering the sacrifices they made. And we kind of feel like maybe they don't get that recognition. Right. So with that, we also are looking at, with the children, we're going to develop a Camp Gerberville. And the kids will have the ability to play, but also learn. So what Mel said with John thinking that a lot of the younger folks on Guam have missed the true meaning of liberation, they will be able to come in and enjoy this museum and then learn where we came from and the struggles and battles that our parents and grandparents went through to get to where we are today. So we'll have a walking park. We hope to open up a gift shop. And I know Mel over the years has always been asked, do you have t-shirts? Do you have Guam memorabilia? So we want to bring that to the public also. And Mel, did I miss anything? Oh, we did want to do a Chamorro Patriot Pavilion. So we would like to, if funding affords us, have some sort of pavilion there to hold maybe an annual Pacific War Museum Foundation ball, if you will. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it's just studying other museums in the world. They all hold some sort of a ball to help generate funds. So we've been, I'm going to jump into our next thought of process here, which is the museum. In moving to Freedom Park, that's what the Greyhound Park is now rebranded to, we acquired a fundraising permit. And Mel, my brother, and I, it's kind of a big undertaking, but we thought that maybe this will be the way that we can generate funds to build a new museum, keep the museum going, and making it better. And that permit is a bingo permit. And it kind of just, I can't say it fell in our laps, but became available to us, the idea, the whole process. So we've just opened our doors on Friday, Mel?
Yes, the 18th.
The 18th. And we had a little rough start. There were little kinks that we needed to get fixed, but I think we're well on our way to getting the funding we need to make this museum, the museum that John would be proud of.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
Yeah, tell us a little bit more. Sorry,
That bingo, by the way, is also at Freedom Park. They have a big area there that the museum is, we're leasing the kennels for the actual museum, but we're also leasing a big indoor area to run the museum, the bingo. It's called Bingo Time. And like I said, we're new, we're still learning, but all the profits after expenses are going to go into this museum. So it's not, I really want the public to know that this bingo is for the Pacific War Museum. It goes right back to what we want to give back to the public, which I think was important to John.
Yeah. And Mel, as I understand it, you had, the museum had previously been funded primarily by the Guam Visitors Bureau because it was and can still be a tourist attraction. And so that kind of dried up once, our tourism industry collapsed, unfortunately. So this is a good way of making up some of that revenue. Yes.
Moving forward with this move, I believe, with the help of the bingo, our fundraising, we'll be able to achieve John's, achieve his goal, or the goal of, moving the museum and continuing his legacy.
Yeah. Over the years, when folks do come and visit the museum, locals and tourists, yes. What has been their reaction that you've noticed? First of all, the local residents, when they go to because I imagine that the reactions would be a little bit different between how the locals may have perceived it and what the tourists get out of it. So maybe if you could just, in your experience.
The locals actually loved it. When they first looked at the building, they were like, oh, it's really small. But as soon as you walk through the doors, they're amazed at how much we actually had in there. And they look around and they're like, oh yeah, some of them, their grandparents or their uncles and aunts they have photos on the walls, our displays. And they're like, yeah, that's my uncle, or that's my aunt. And it was really nice. They enjoyed it. The tourists that come through are just amazed. Some of them have cried. So the older Japanese, when they come through, some of them really get touched by what we have, and what we display. And a lot of them, though, didn't quite understand because, they weren't taught about the war here, but they love it. They take pictures, they really enjoy it. They had a great time. Some of them, you wouldn't think that the tourists would stay there long, but some of them can just spend the afternoon there, just looking around, taking pictures, and just having a good time, So.
And Janet, you were mentioning earlier that you'd like to continue to develop it as a tourism stop, which, one of the things Guam's tourism industry will need. It is some places to go for that are different from the beach, and this would be one of those. What do you hope the tourists will get out of this?
Well, if you've ever been to the former museum, John had exhibits down 2 aisles. One side of it was the Japanese side of it, and one was the US. And it was interesting because, you know, today we're all friends, right? So the Japanese side of it was purely their uniforms, their generals, their you know, the artillery and the artifacts that they used during the war. And then the American side was, you know, a whole different story. And I guess my biggest regret is not having not taped John's when you would go down there, and if you were lucky enough to catch John there, he would walk you through the whole museum and give you a story. And I just regret not having taped his story. I can remember bits and pieces of what he said, but not the way he said it. It was passionate. So yes. So what do we want with this new museum? And Mel said it. We want to continue John's legacy. This was his project, his lifelong dream. But we also want to take it to the next level. Mel and I both visited the Marine Corps Museum in Quantico years ago, and they have a beautiful museum. But what they lack is what John has, which is the real stuff. It's the real guns, the real vehicles. So we want to preserve this. I know that leaving it out in the Guam, you know, the harsh weather here, it'll just deteriorate and there won't be anything left. So that's our goal, is to preserve his legacy, our history, and move on with our culture.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E. GU Self-Storage, conveniently located near the Harmon McDonald's. We offer affordable rates, online payments, and auto bill pay for your convenience. Plus gate access daily from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Call us today at 648-7867 for more information. In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.
And Mel, most of the relics were found here in Guam, right? He collected it here in Guam from back in World War II?
Yes, most of them. There is a few that they brought. Actually, there was only one that they brought in from the Philippines, and that was John's favorite. Well, close to a tank. It was the only thing that we came close to, you know, it being a tank, was the armored personnel carrier. He drive that. Yeah.
Was that like his favorite artifact there?
That was his favorite, but he did always want a Sherman tank.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Don't we all want a Sherman tank?
I think Mel, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we have people on Guam also bring down things and donate it? Yes, we
actually have a big collection from the DeSoto family, from Jigo. Both in the Japanese side and the American side, that they donated to the museum. And then we also have, you know, other people that come in and they want, you know, like put up their grandfather's uniforms in our display and things like that.
And we still encourage that. If anyone wanted to donate something on display and donate, we are going to welcome it and try to make it part of our museum.
Yeah, and the Marines, of course, have had a long history here in Guam. You know, the Marine Corps base is named after our first general who was a Marine, General Ben Blaz. So maybe you guys can just elaborate a little bit more on what you think the young Marines are going to get out of this once they get a chance to visit.
Well, if they're anything like John, they are Mel called it the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
I tell you, young and old. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Semper Fi, yeah?
Semper Fi.
All right, and so how far along are you? I mean, is there a timeline that you guys have established for, you know, the goals that you want to accomplish and finally get this thing open again?
Well, you know, we're kind of going back and forth with it because we went full force cleaning the kennels. I mean, it was a mess. So we went into that, and then we're like, okay, how are we gonna get to step 2, rebuilding the kennels? And so we kind of got distracted because now we're working on bingo as being our main source of revenue. GVB and the senators will be so proud of us that we're actually trying to, we had the John Gerber runs, 5Ks. We did it several times, right, Mel, until the pandemic hit. And then that kind of stopped. But we will start picking up slowly again and trying to come up with innovative ideas to get the funding we need to rebuild the museum. But it will be a whole new museum with John running through it everywhere.
All right, so I think we're running a little short on time now, so I'm going to give you the final word. Tell us a little bit more about your bingo and how people can avail of that and also help out the museum.
Mel, you want to jump on that?
Well, we have bingo tonight, so come on down. Our doors open at 4:30 and the game starts at 7:30. I think we've worked out most of our kinks. The problems have been solved, and hopefully, runs it. We're hopeful that it runs smoothly and we can get through this and raise some money for the museum.
And is the bingo? What's the schedule? Is it every day? How many?
Every day except Wednesday. I think Wednesday is our day off, right, Mel?
Yeah, our maintenance day.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the Pacific War Museum. The bingo is at the old Guam Greyhound Park. And go there, enjoy yourselves, have a good time, maybe win some bingo money, and also help support the Guam War Museum that John Gerber founded just so many years ago. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank
Janet
you, Nestor.
Calvo, Mel Gerber, Pacific War Museum. I'm Nestor Licanto. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you again next week on In Full Zoom.
In Full Zoom is presented by Calvo Enterprises, Inc. and IT&E.